second place. Oh,
Moya and Reed trying to come back after the penalty. He's going to have to fight all the way to the line. Thorpe trying to come as well. Velasquez with a late surge. As they get to the line, it's going to be Madsen. Just terrific race.
Man, I just love triathlon. Welcome back everybody to the Triathlon Weekly News Roundup presented by TheFeed.com. Let's dive into first the weekend's races, but then we're going to talk about Ironman Texas coming up. We've got triathlon shoes of the future, latest T100 Singapore news, alarming doping situation right now at the moment in the triathlon world. Then World Triathlon itself is having a bit of a nightmare with their schedule, but they're making it work with a few changes. And then Jan Frodeno, heard some things about maybe him doing some coaching and some other things. Very interesting. Can't wait to dive into it. But first, let's get into these weekend's races. If you didn't check out my Ironman African Champs review video and breakdown, go check that one out because it was an awesome race. It was an incredible performance by the Terminator himself, Rasmus Svenningsson, who really rode unbelievably in those conditions. Outbiking Cameron Wurf, although Cameron Wurf did have 2 rides for Ineos in his leg in the previous 7 days, so we'll give him some credit there. But he got a Kona spot, and also Matthias Pedersen, who's just a brilliant Ironman athlete. And then on the women's side, we had Daniela Ryf not perform as we would have expected. We found out it was because she was struggling with a glute injury leading up into that race. She still managed to finish though, and that made sure she validated her spot to go to Nice. But what a tough thing to do. Survive an Ironman with a glute injury. Props to her. There's the reason she's the GOAT. But hopefully it's not that bad an injury and we'll see her soon. But then we also had a massive race at 70.3 Valencia. There was 109 pros racing here, which was 8 more than what raced at Oceanside. And the fascinating headline here was on the women's side, Laura Philipp actually didn't take the win. She was definitely the favorite for that race, but the underdog took this one as well. Laura Madsen from Denmark, she was way down in the PTO rankings. Never would have guessed she would have taken the win there. She's obviously had a great block of winter training, which is what I love about early season races. She finished ahead of Carolyn Pohl, who's one of the top 25 ranked athletes in the world, and short course Olympic athlete Lena Meisner. So brilliant performance from her. And yeah, 4th place for Laura Philipp, who just trying to complete 2 70.3s to validate her spot for the Nice World Championship. So I'm sure she'll still be happy. It's an early season race, but she'll have to step it up a gear because she'll be racing at T100 San Francisco coming up. But then on the men's side, with 81 men racing, it was an incredible 2nd and 3rd place sprint finish, which you saw between Jan Stratman and Yannick Schauffler, which I hadn't heard of his name before, but he looks like another one who's had a brilliant winter season training. But Leo Berger, I mean, he is just unreal at this middle distance, and he clearly has a bright future like Martin Van Riel, Hayden Wild, all those up-and-coming Olympic athletes. He won by 3 minutes in the end. Just truly scary how he biked there. He biked over 2 minutes faster than everyone in that field and then ran a 1:10.5 really comfortably to take the win. Picked up his slot for the 70.3 World Champs in Taupo. I cannot wait for that race. There's going to be a lot of scary athletes like him. But yeah, it just goes to show you, even though there was just 2 spots on offer for those World Champs and only $40,000 in prize purse, it just brought out such a massive field, which goes to show how competitive triathlon is becoming right now. Every race is slowly but surely getting deeper and deeper, and especially in the EU. I would not want to be a pro over there. Every win could mean a potential wildcard spot for the T100 races, and that wasn't even a Pro Series race, so those races are going to be even bigger, and we'll get to that with Ironman Texas in a second. But we also had 70.3 Philippines, and man, this one was all about who just survived that heat. It was supposed to be even hotter than that race in Singapore. The fastest half marathon on the men's side was a 1:24 by Henry Schoeman, which is extremely slow in these 70.3 races. Still won with that by 4 minutes to Sam Osborne and 9 minutes to Tom Bishop, both athletes who are pretty phenomenal. Henry Schoeman, bronze medalist at the Rio Olympics, I think is another truly terrifying short course athlete moving up into the middle distance. He's still chasing the Olympics, but yeah, he's probably gonna head to Taupo, and like Leo Berger, will have a really good shot at winning there. He has commented as well that the T100 series is actually more interesting to him right now than the Olympics, so we'll probably see him get a wild card start pretty soon. On the women's side, oh my goodness, Els Visser continues her amazing form. She again outbiked Anne Reichman here, but Anne had a phenomenal performance again on the bike and the run to pick up second place. And then Zanne Bregmeier, another Olympic athlete, finished in third place, but about 15 minutes behind. So again, the heat was insane, and Lucy Byram was one of those who really suffered, it seems. She ended up with a DNF, and her tracker says it took her 5.5 hours to complete that bike ride, which I don't think is accurate, but if it was, that means she really suffered out there. So I hope she's okay. But then there was World Triathlon racing this weekend. I'm just loving watching these World Cup sprint races. They're so entertaining. It was in Wollongong, Australia, which is going to be the host of the finals next year. And it was an epic sprint finish between Jamie Riddle and Diego Moya for second place, but it was Luke Willian who took a clear win there. Good stuff for him heading towards the Paris Olympics. And then on the women's side, wow, you saw that sprint finish as well. Tilda Manson out-sprinted the likes of Rachel Klammer, who was fourth at the Tokyo Olympics. Brilliant result for her. And then finally, the Challenge World Bonus kicked off with Challenge Gran Canaria. Not as big a start list as we've seen last year. Obviously a lot of races going on, but Marta Lagerwick, another up-and-coming breakthrough athlete here with a fantastic result, and Easton Harrott of the UK, they picked up the wins and will now be leading that Challenge World Bonus. I'm excited to see how that unfolds again this year. But then moving on, we've got Ironman at Texas this week. Second race of the Ironman Pro Series, but the first full Ironman, which means 5,000 points on offer, but also a $175,000 prize purse, which is massive if you compare that to the 40,000 on offer in Valencia. So it's the North American champs, 6 slots on offer for the world champs in Kona and Nice for the men and women. And again, the start list is huge. I think it's even bigger than last year. We've got a few athletes returning, the likes of Matthew Marquardt, Robert Wilkowiecki, who were in quite a big battle with Rudy von Berg last year. What a crazy race that was. I was there in person. Just an awesome course to spectate, especially on the run. The bike, not so much, but on the run for sure. So cannot wait to watch that one. It's going to be broadcast. Kat Matthews last year, she won the race coming back from all her injuries after her accident. It was just such a special one for her. And yeah, she's up against the likes of Jocelyn McCauley, who's in really good form. Lauren Brandon, Fenella Langridge, they'll be strong on the swim. And then Danielle Lewis had a brilliant race at Oceanside. She's taken on an Ironman here, so it'll be interesting to see how she does. Yeah, so many good names to watch there. Joe Skipper, not sure he'll get to use his Aero water bottles anymore in this race. But yeah, hopefully he doesn't take a wrong turn again and has a great result. Patrick Lange, Braden Curry, those two guys are also definitely chasing this Pro Series. So big guns heading out there. Make sure you head to dailytri.com and make your fantasy picks. If you guys haven't done fantasy yet, you're missing out. Seriously, it is for everyone. My mom even does it. So make sure you head there and do that fantasy. Make your picks. We always have good prizes for the races as well. It takes 2 minutes. So many of you have messaged me like, oh, I'm gonna try fantasy one day. You gotta try it right now. It's so quick and easy to do. And if you have any questions, just message me on Instagram. I'll help you out. But moving away from the races for a second and on to the news, because there was a lot of it. And we'll start off with Pro Tri News, who created a graphic which included a list of athletes of the T100 contracted athletes, as well as lots of the wildcards. And they showed whether or not these athletes were in a registered testing pool. Now, if you haven't heard of a registered testing pool, they are so important for anti-doping because it means athletes have to fill out a specific location and time where they have to be available every day for anti-doping agents to come and test them. And the reason these really work is because they allow for much stricter out-of-competition testing versus in-competition testing. So this really helps catch the athletes, which we saw with the likes of Colin Chartier, who was caught after being added to Ironman's registered testing pool after his good results in the US Open and at Ironman Mont Tremblant. So Pro Tri News did a much more in-depth podcast about it, but basically they said PTO T100 really need their own registered testing pool like Ironman, or they should work with Ironman on it. Even Rudy von Berg chimed in on it, saying he couldn't believe how many athletes weren't in registered testing pools because he said these athletes could literally be doping and crushing training all winter long and no one would ever know. He said, "We know if there's no accountability, some will exploit the system." So I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are on that below. Is it unfortunate that the T100 PTO don't have something robust already in plan before their season started? I'm sure we'll hear something soon from them. We know they're partnered with World Triathlon, so I'm assuming it's going to be something with them. And yeah, I hope we get that out soon, because as we all know, when Colin was caught, it really did shake the whole triathlon world. And the last thing we need is another thing like that. With all this momentum coming into the season, I really, really hope we keep crunching down on the anti-doping in our sport. Thanks to ProTri News for putting that out, by the way. But staying on the subject of the PTO and T100, and I didn't get to talk with you much about T100 Singapore, and I wanted to bring up a few things from that race. First of all, I love that we're starting to have this season narrative and we're starting to see the points unfold. I just thought it was brilliant that a wild card won on the men's race, and that adds such another dynamic to this series, because he's top of the season leaderboards, Yuri Kulin. And then, yeah, Els Visser pulling out a fantastic performance. Mika Newt, Kyle Smith being up there at the top of the races as wild cards. I love the underdogs. But I believe with such good performances from them, they should probably be getting either definite guaranteed next wild cards to the next races, or maybe in the case of Yuri, a permanent spot on the Team 100 Tour. I think with 20 athletes, they have this opportunity to add more to the series. They don't have that many athletes racing. Be curious to hear what your thought is. I just think if we don't have them at the next race, we'll really feel like we're missing out on them, because they clearly impacted those races, and I think they'll impact the future races. So I hope we see them at the next upcoming race. San Francisco is gonna be awesome. Touching on a few other things from the race, I thought the broadcast was much better. I also thought the coverage on the swim was so good. They had some really awesome shots there. The swim cap colors worked phenomenally. I just think they actually could have had somebody putting up a tracker, maybe even manually, of where those athletes were, so we could kind of get a visual representation of each of the athletes, because I could tell who the athletes were, but I bet a lot of people didn't, and they were wondering where the top athletes were in the swim. I think that would keep a lot of people engaged during that first segment, which I think is so important for when people tune in to watch the race. You need to do everything during the swim to keep them watching the race. But I think there was still a few things for improvement, especially around the tracker. The women's race worked really well. They even had the max heart rate on there, speed. The GPS units were obviously working. But on the men's race, it wasn't working. We didn't have any live splits, so obviously they've got some things to improve there. But then with that season narrative came so many things that I was thinking about. There are going to be a lot of athletes who have to get some results soon. And then there's all those athletes like Ann Haug, Max Newman, who haven't raced yet and will have to race the remaining 6 races. I think it's going to be quite tough on these athletes. And then also guys like Rudy Von Berg, Leon Chevalier, who haven't had good races, even though they're contracted athletes. They might be reconsidering why they joined up into this T100 series when they have such an amazing opportunity to potentially even win the Ironman Pro Series. And I wonder if we might see this next year when not all the top athletes race the T100, kind of like Patrick Lang, and just focus on the Pro Series or just other individual races that they could win, the Challenge World bonus as well. So it's going to get more and more exciting as the season goes on. After these first 2 races, my hot questions, I've asked this to you guys before if you've watched my new show for a long time. We know they're trying to take triathlon mainstream, get it to a wide audience. After watching these first 2 races, what do you think? Is this our ticket to the mainstream and growing our sport much bigger? Or do you think not quite there yet, or think not at all? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. And also, the video of the week came out of this race, and this one goes to the bike mechanics at this race, fixing Anne Reichman's bike extremely quickly, got her on her way again, and we all know how good a result she had there. So kudos to those bike mechanics for the PTO. I've heard just amazing things about them, so just had to give them a little bit of recognition. But moving on from there, at that race, we also heard Sam Long dropping a bit of a hint that Jan Frodeno might be doing some coaching, and I couldn't let this one slide after I heard it. I was so intrigued.
Just have to commit to the process. I mean, Jan is I think coaching now, so maybe he could give me a few tips.
Because there's probably no one on earth I'd rather see or hear coaching more than Jan Frodeno, obviously with his past. I just think it would be fantastic for the media standpoint alone to see him coaching some of the top triathletes in the world. And yeah, I hope that rumor is true. Who would you like to see him coaching? The number one person I could think of that I would love to see him coaching is one of his biggest fans, and that would be Lionel Sanders. I just think the YouTube channel and what they could do together would be amazing. But we do know Jan is now accepted a position as the Chief Performance Officer for FUELIN, which you guys have heard me talk lots about before. It's that amazing training-based nutrition app that connects to your training plans and gives you daily nutrition guidelines, everything you need for the day in terms of what you need to eat and drink and take care of yourself around training and racing. It's just brilliant. I absolutely love using it. And now he is sharing all his expertise, his recipes that he used while he was training. And he's working with Scott Tyndall, who's the co-founder of FUELIN. And they are going to be working together to improve that app even more. And I'm going to be having Scott Tyndall on for a podcast to talk all about him being Jan's nutrition coach last year and how Jan got involved with the app and how their partnership together helped Jan win in Milwaukee at the US Open. So I cannot wait for that episode. I'm recording it later tonight actually, so looking forward to that. But moving into the Boston Marathon for a second, and this one was reported by Triathlon Magazine Canada, and it was about the OnCloud Boom Strike prototype shoes that Hellen Obiri ran in to win that race. They are 3D printed sock fit laceless shoes. Obviously you have the full length carbon plate, high energy return, but yeah, the design, the laceless, I just think this could be the future of triathlon, making transitions a little bit easier. And apparently On is getting ready to equip most of its athletes with this shoe in the upcoming months. They've been given the okay from World Athletics to use in competitions. But yeah, we've seen this before with OnCloud shoes where we never saw them hit the market, the OnCloud Tri shoes that we saw Gustav Iden wearing last year. But it would be so interesting to see if laceless shoes become the future of triathlon. And then last two pieces of news, SuperTri announced their calendar finally. They are going to be hosting races this year in Chicago and Boston as well for the pro athletes. They're still holding on to Neom and London and also Toulouse. Obviously they lost that Malibu race from last year, but now an upgraded calendar, 5 races, and I'm just stoked to see the races in the US. So kudos to them. They've also made a deal with Warner Bros. Discovery, just like the PTO, to stream their races on Max, which is fantastic, great for the sport. But then moving on to WTCS and World Triathlon, and the opposite has kind of happened for them. It hasn't been going so well because WTCS Montreal was canceled. And if you remember, just over last month in Abu Dhabi, that race was canceled because of the storms. So this was some big news, but thankfully they did announce that the World Cup in Weihai, not quite sure how to pronounce that, will be now upgraded to a WTCS race. They also said that now the Olympics will count towards the WTCS series overall standings, which is just like it was in the COVID times, and that also only 3 races instead of 4 will count towards the series plus the grand final. So this might change up a lot of athletes' plans, and I'm thinking of a few short course athletes who are thinking of going long course after the Olympics. But now if they have to race less races and maybe only just do 1 or the grand final after the Olympics and still be in for a shot to win the series, this could be some huge news. So stay tuned for that. And this race in Weihai is an Olympic distance race, which I always kind of prefer seeing the guys race in the short course. So yeah, big news coming out from World Triathlon. And we've all been hearing nonstop about whether or not that triathlon race in the Olympics in Paris is going to end up being a duathlon. Right now, it is not looking good, although they do say they are confident that it is still going to be a triathlon. Although Matt Sharp in the Tempo News pointed out that Surfrider Europe took 10 tests from September to March recently, and only 2 days of those 10 passed what would be World Triathlon standards for E. coli. So it's going to be touch and go. World Triathlon said they do have a backup plan, but it's going to be interesting. Some people were saying that maybe we should just right now move it to a different location entirely, just like surfing, which is going to be taking place in Tahiti. Why don't we have the triathlon just take place somewhere else where we know the swim is going to happen? But good luck, World Triathlon. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes dealing with this. And let's hope Paris gets their stuff together and gives us that triathlon race that we all want to see at the Olympics. But that's it for this week's news. Thank you all for staying tuned. I thought I would finish with sharing with you my calendar where I will be at races this year. I finally have it pretty much set in stone, so I would love to see a lot of you out there. I will be at T100 San Francisco next, and then right off to the Ironman Pro Series race in Cairns in Australia. I'm so excited to be doing some filming for Ironman out there. So if you're in Australia, you never thought you could see me, come and see me out there at that race. And then also I'll be heading to Challenge Roth again, spending 2 months actually in Europe, hopefully making it to the T100 London and also the Olympics. So that's the plan so far. And then I will be heading to T100 Vegas and then of course Ironman Kona. So hopefully see lots of you guys out there. If you guys love this show, enjoy the news and the race recaps and highlights I've been doing, and you would love to see it continue, I would love your help. If you'd like to support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee, or I'm also going to be starting channel memberships where you'll get access to the videos early. That means you'll get to see the highlights a few hours before everyone else does. So thank you guys as always for all the support. I appreciate it. Make sure you check out dailytri.com and play the fantasy. See you in the next one.